Hi, everybody. As this year comes to a close, it's a really beautiful time to pause, to slow down, and to give ourselves the space to reflect on what it is that we've lived through and learned over the last 12 months. A year can feel like a very long time, or it can also feel pretty short, depending on how we look at it. And I imagine that there are extremely different moments, big and small, that we don't even consciously remember anymore. Growth happens quietly sometimes. There are lessons that land subtly, shifts that occur within us without us even realizing it. So, what we're going to talk about today is an invitation to think through a few reflections that I was sitting with myself that I invite you to also turn inward and reflect on yourselves. The intention is to notice what themes may be present for us this past year, even subconsciously, and then how those insights might help us grow as we move forward. So, when we step into the new year, we're not trying to become somebody completely new. We're building from what it is that we've already learned, as well as what we've healed from, and we can move forward through that. So, one of the very first questions that I asked myself was, looking back on this past year, how can I appreciate the value of just being present, not only the value of doing? This particular year for me had a mixture of both, of movement as well as stillness. And especially where I live, we are taught within our culture that value is coming from this constant motion, proving ourselves, providing something. But there is also deep value in stillness. Without stillness, we can't fully appreciate the action, and life exists in that natural rhythm of both activity as well as rest. One is giving to the other. So when I found myself reflecting on those moments, on the moments where I took a step to breathe and not really push myself, I saw that as information and basically an invitation to create more space for those types of moments. Being and doing matter. Honoring that balance is part of how we move forward more intentionally. It allows us to be aware of the way that we're behaving. My second reflection, this one was around boundaries, and not just boundaries about time or effort, but energetic boundaries. For a very long time, I thought relationships were mostly in terms of what someone was or wasn't bringing into my life. But what became extremely clear is that energy itself is something that is brought into every single connection. People don't just show up with the words that they're speaking or the actions that they're taking. They show up with emotional states, unhealed wounds, lived experience. And when you're an empathic person or you're emotionally attuned, it is extremely easy to absorb that energy without sometimes even realizing. And the energy can feel draining, emotionally and spiritually exhausting. It's oftentimes even called energy vampiring because it has such an impact on your physical being. So I was asking myself, do I want to be in relationships where I am consistently feeling depleted? And the answer is a resounding no. That's where the boundaries become necessary. It's not a rejection, it is self-respect. Boundaries don't mean that I'm cutting people out completely. They can be subjective. They can look like spending less time together, creating emotional distance, or even having honest conversations that say, this is how I feel when we interact. And sometimes that communication can open space for mutual growth, and sometimes it won't. And when it doesn't, we get to choose. The people that we surround ourselves with influence who we become, and vice versa. Energy is contagious, and being mindful of what it is that we allow into our space is part of honoring our own well-being. And we don't have to feel bad about that. The third and final reflection: how do we carry these lessons into the new year? For me, it's about continuing to choose what's aligned to me, setting those healthy boundaries. While having those boundaries, I can still remain open. I could still remain compassionate. I could still remain grounded. It's about allowing things to unfold instead of forcing. And when I do that, when I remain in the flow, my energy becomes more focused. And when the energy is more focused, manifestation happens more naturally. And it's, again, not just a personal thing, it ripples outward. When we can heal and become aware of ourselves, we contribute to the collective in these subconscious and subtle, meaningful ways. And that is truly magical. So I invite you to sit with yourselves, pose these same questions or similar questions. Things like, where did you honor stillness this year? Or are there still places where you might need to add a little bit more of that? How did energy show up in your relationships? And are there patterns that you are witnessing that you're ready to release? And then what feels aligned with who you are becoming? There's no right or wrong answer. It's literally all just another data point, another perspective, another way of learning. One last thing I'd like to offer as a practice that really helps me to reflect. I take a lot of photos on my phone, and I actually go back and I look through them on a month-by-month basis, and I jot down notes of meaningful moments that I have each month. When I look at it as a whole, I realize how much I tend to forget. It's humbling. It shows growth. And it really tells a beautiful story. And if you don't take photos, maybe you journal. Maybe you mark things in your calendar, or even look at old messages. However you do it, give yourself the chance to see your story in its totality. Because one day, you'll look back at where you were and where you are now, and you will see the progression.